On today's episode of Left Off the Mat, I'm going to cook with a really quintessentially Tasmanian ingredient, the pepperberry, and I'm going to make a pepperberry brownie. To start off with the brownies, I'm going to mix together some butter, brown sugar and some vanilla essence. So we'll get those together. We've got about 125 grams of butter, a couple of teaspoons of vanilla essence, and I just love brown sugar. It's got a bit more flavour than white sugar. All right, so I'm going to mix together the butter, sugar and vanilla essence. You can use a vanilla bean as well if you've got them available, but you can also use vegetable oil. I find butter actually gives a bit more of a decadent sort of flavour and makes it a bit fudgier than the vegetable oil. A couple of 100 grams of sugar. In with the vanilla. So the brown sugar didn't look like much. We want a couple of 100 grams. The reason for that is brown sugar is actually denser than white sugar and it absorbs a heap more moisture. So it doesn't look like much, but we have got enough there. I want to add my eggs. So 3 eggs. I'm just going to do this one at a time and I'm going to use the KitchenAid to mix them together. What I'm looking for is the mixture to go from a sort of a dark brown to a pale brown, and that's when I know it's mixed well. My mixture is now a paler colour and I've sifted in some flour, baking powder and cacao. A little note on cacao, you can get cocoa or cacao. It's actually the same thing. The difference being is the way it's processed. So cacao is actually a more raw form of the cocoa bean. It hasn't been cooked at quite the temperature and you actually get a bunch of nutritional benefits to that. Next up, I'm going to melt my chocolate in a bean. You don't want to overcook your chocolate because you'll separate it. All right, chocolate in. Mix it down. Stick it on full blast, it doesn't matter. Oh, maybe not full blast. Just let it run till it's well mixed. So I've got my mixture nice and smooth, the chocolate's melted, I'm just gonna fold that in and then we're gonna add walnuts to the mixture as well. I've just lightly toasted these while we've been doing everything else. They're beautiful, crunchy. A roasted walnut is just like, this is the best flavour ever. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just so rich. Like you don't get, oh, far out. Walnut all through my teeth now. Don't want to smile. But the roasted walnut, it's just totally different to a normal walnut. So I highly recommend doing it. It'll go beautifully with the sweetness of this dish. Okay, so in with the chocolate. Lovely. Oh, get it all over my fingers. Now you could cut up or crush your nuts if you wanted to. I'm gonna leave them pretty much whole. It'll just give it that chunky, textural sort of feel to the dish. In they go. Walnuts are primarily grown on the east coast of Tassie, and the way that they fruit is actually the tree needs to be stressed into fruiting. So they used to actually whip the trees with chains to make it happen. I'm not sure if they do it these days or not. Surely they'd come up with a better method now. Beautiful. So I'm gonna add the pepperberries to my mixture. These things are super strong, really, really fiery, but they've also got this beautiful sort of sweet floral aroma to them. So if if you use them in small amounts, it actually work really well with a dessert like this. I actually made this for the first time with a friend the other day, and we were sort of racking our brains as to like how to make a brownie a bit different or a bit fun. And pepperberries are sort of a bit counterintuitive. You usually use those with, you know, kangaroo and meats and proteins, but they actually really work well in a brownie. My pepperberries and walnuts are folded through the mixture now. I've put it into a small baking dish. Now, smaller is better because you want to be able to get a nice thick brownie. You want it really fudgy in the middle, you want it really gooey. Well, that's for me anyway. So if it's in a big tray, it'll be thin, it'll dry out quickly. So this is good to go. I'm going to whack it in the oven for about half an hour at 180 degrees. All right, so brownies have been in the oven for about half an hour, maybe 35 minutes. It's risen, looking really good. Hopefully it's still nice and fudgy in the middle. So let's take it out. Oop, I need my towels. There's almost still a little bit of jiggle left in it. I reckon it's going to be super, super fudgy. So once you've taken it out of the oven, it's probably best just to leave it in the baking dish for about half an hour, let it cool down, it'll be easy to get out, and then serve with a bit of cream and off you go.
Hi Ricky, nice to see you again.
Likewise, welcome.
Thank you. And how are things going out here at 2 Ton Vineyard?
Pretty good. I guess winter's a bit of a quiet time in the vineyard. We're just kind of chipping away, pruning and tying down and getting ready for the season. So spending a bit more time in the winery and just looking after all the wines from the previous year. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit going on, but it's a nice time of year.
Tell me a little bit about what's behind us and about, you know, the process of wine being in barrel and what that importance is of a good barrel versus an average barrel.
Yeah, well, this is mostly Pinot Noir sitting in here. There's a few other fun things sitting at the front there, but there's not much of those. And Chardonnay. So I think, you know, to make quality Pinot Noir, you need to be using good oak. So we're all French oak here. Mm-hmm. New barrels are expensive, but they are certainly worth the investment. What I'm trying to find with these is not so much what I'm getting out of them as new barrels with the spice and toast and the sort of sweetness you get that comes with that on the palate, but to try and, I'm looking for them when they're 2 years old and 3 years old and 4 years old. You get this lovely softness. They keep the wines fresh, whereas older barrels can sometimes, you know, they just look a bit old, and you need to keep things fresh. So Pinot Noir needs to rest and it needs time to sit in barrels. You don't want too much new oak because anything that's, you know, throwing the wine out of balance isn't a good thing. So you have to be quite careful with it. Same as Chardonnay. I mean, it's the same thing. I think Chardonnay is a bit of a blank canvas, and you need to do something with it for it to have, you know, texture and to be able to feel it and know why it was made a particular way. So barrels are pretty important with that. I don't use a lot of new oak, but it's a pretty important part just to get that creaminess and the sweetness and the freshness. You hear people talk about catching the wine bug, essentially. I don't think that's quite the case. I think for me, I mean, at university level, I was really fortunate enough to have some really great people and made some really great friends, as you often do at university. And then you develop similar interests. And initially that was why I wouldn't have gone and done anything else. I think I did struggle a bit when I left university. I was thinking, I can't taste anything. I just don't know. I'm not getting it. I was with, a lot of other guys that came from winemaking families and had been, lived in the Barossa and brought up with wine. So I felt like I was a long way behind, but eventually it came. And then once you get this sort of, feeling that you've got it or you're getting it, it gets a little bit, I guess you crave it a little bit. I think, beyond that with wine, and I reflect on it a little bit, is that you don't seem to ever... By the time you get sick of doing something or a process, like for instance vintage, it's nearly done. And that happens with wine a lot. So you're pruning, you're like, love it, love it, love it, and then you're just getting sick of it, and then it's done. And this happens all year round, and it never kind of ends. So there's always something new to look forward to with the seasons. There's always something new happening with the wines, and there's always something to, cast your mind ahead and get excited about the future.
Amazing. So tell me a little bit about 2 Ton and how that came about.
So I guess like a lot of, early 20s winemaking kids, I was pretty toey and just wanted to do a bit more, and an opportunity came up to look after a winery on the West Tamar for a little bit. They couldn't really afford to pay money at the time, but sort of suited me fine. They paid me in a couple of tons of Pinot Noir. So at the time it was, it still is, very expensive to buy fruit in Tasmania, and I certainly didn't have the financial ability to do that. So it kind of worked out really nicely and started from there, and that was the initial 2 tons of fruit. There was no real plan to keep going with it. It was just sort of a one-off thing, but then you start doing these things and you can't stop. So the next year found another 1 ton of fruit in 2014. It was very low yielding vintage, and then after that started leasing vineyards and got too busy and ended up having to leave Bay of Fires eventually after 8 vintages there. So
yeah, wow.
It was quite a long time in the end.
Ricky, what do you think would be the next trend? We've seen in the market that Tasmanian Pinot is quite high in demand, and I guess Tasmanian Sparkling. What do you think will be the next thing in the next 10 years?
I think if I did know the answer, might become quite rich, which would be good. But I think what we're seeing currently, and I don't think it'll change, is skin contact white. So in the orange wine kind of area, that's like huge and it's going to get bigger. I think what's exciting is the demand for Gamay, and there's some really, really good Gamay in Tasmania, and there's some awesome places for it to be planted in the future. So I think we'll see a bit of that, and that's kind of the bridge between Pinot to Shiraz.
Yes.
And I think it's really well suited down here.
Fantastic.
So coming back, I thought I'd come up with a dish to go with those sort of wines. This is a very light sort of lunch dish to go with a nice light Chardonnay or sort of rosé or orange wine. It's a poached salmon dish. There are a couple of things I want to show you in this dish: how I poach the salmon and how I slow cook the egg. So I've got my steamer on in my oven, 65 degrees, and I'm going to do a slow cooked egg. So 65 degrees for about 45 minutes, and I'm poaching the egg in the shell. So I'll pop my eggs in. So they'll steam away in there for 45 minutes for our slow cooked egg. To cook my salmon, I'm going to use boiling water. So I've got a pot of water here. It's about to come to the boil. And I'm just going to pour boiling water over the top of it and let it sit for about 6 minutes. The dressing really is where all the flavour comes from, so we'll get on to making that dressing now. A little bit of Greek yogurt is going to be the base of your dressing. And then I've got capers, paprika, and anchovies. With the anchovies, you just want to mince them. So get a good pinch of anchovies, run your knife through them in one direction, turn it around and run your knife through in the other direction. You just want to break up all that into a bit of a paste or a mince, anchovy mince. And I'm going to pop that in with our Greek yogurt. My paprika, half a teaspoon of paprika is going to go in there as well. And then capers, same thing. I'm just going to run my knife through my capers a couple of times. Now this won't need any seasoning, won't need any salt because it's got those anchovies in there and the capers. But you can see we're packing heaps of flavour into this dressing. 2 really strong flavoured ingredients in capers and anchovies. Give that a stir. Now because Greek yogurt is acidic, we're not going to need to add any citrus. So that's perfect. It's ready to go. That's our dressing for our dish. So we'll pop that there. So I'm going to pop my salmon into a bowl. Pour my boiling water over the top. Make sure it's fully covered. So I'm just going to wait for about 6 minutes. After 6 minutes, I can take that salmon out and I'm going to just flake it up gently to go through my poached salmon salad. So I just want to gently break this up. So you can see how that's cooked beautifully just through. It's still just opaque in the centre, which is what we're after. The salmon's been flaked and is beautifully cooked. So that system of cooking the salmon gently, as you can see, works perfectly. And really, if I left it there for another 2 or 3 minutes, it wouldn't have hurt because the temperature's come down so much now that it would just hold it at that perfect temperature on the inside. So now I can start to put the rest of my salad together. So I've got some baby cos that I'm just going to cut in half and then half again. So we've got these quarter wedges of cos. Cucumber, which I'm just going to run a speed peeler along to get some cucumber ribbons. Cucumbers are pretty good now, but it used to be that the seeds were a little bit bitter and they're obviously watery. All right, so we've got our cucumber ribbons. Avocado, cut it in half. Twist to open it up. And then while it's still in the skin, cut out your little strips. So cut those strips, then spoon your avocado out. And we've got a little avocado fan, I guess you could call it, ready to go. Last thing, my radishes. Just want to cut little radish rounds. So you could do this with a mandolin if you want to, but because radishes are so small, it's always dangerous on a mandolin if you're slicing these. Got all the ingredients for my salad prep now. My cos lettuce wedges, my cucumber ribbons, avocado fan, and my radish rounds. My dressing is ready to go as well, so now we're just waiting on that slow poached egg. That has got about 5 minutes to go, and then we'll be able to plate this dish up. Time to finish off this salad. So my cos wedges I can place on my dish. Cucumber ribbons, just sort of fold them over and curl them up into little rounds, just like that. And then place them in strategic spots where you know you're going to be able to get them. It'll be nice and crunchy and refreshing. Avocado, I might just keep that as a fan. I think that looks good like that. So I'll place that right in the middle. And then my radish rounds sort of just be scattered around. My dressing, you can probably just serve it, I reckon, with this. And then people can put as much or as little of the dressing on as they wanted to. Our eggs. Out of the steamer. So they've been in there for 45 minutes at 65 degrees. So we should be able to break them straight out of the shell. There's our perfectly poached egg. A little bit of salt on top, crack of pepper. And that is a poached salmon salad with two really interesting, fun, cool, simple techniques of poaching the fish with boiling water and then making your poached egg in the steamer. Give it a try with one of those light wines, a rosé, an orange wine, a Chardonnay, something like that, and the combination will marry perfectly.